Sir? David? I can't hear anybody. Can anyone hear me? Hello? Can anyone hear me? Oh, you do? Okay. Oh, I just heard you. Okay. Thank God.
Good. Are you able to make me a co-host again?
Okay. I thought I did that when I signed you up.
No, I think you have to do it in the meeting.
All right, make co-host. Do you want to make David Bria co-host? Yes.
Cool.
Okay.
Now I can mute people.
There you go.
Can you unmute me too?
Can mute everybody if I need to. And we have begun the recording. All right, so the time I have now is 7:31. I will call this meeting to order. Begin with the pledge to our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we will begin first with our roll call. Give Mary Ann a second to unmute herself there.
Hi, everyone. In attendance, Ms. Thompson,
Here.
Ms. Siegel-Morris, I see you. Mr. Ross is not here, right?
He's here.
Oh. I don't see him. Okay.
He doesn't
Mr.
have
Bria,
a video.
okay. Mr. Bria, Mr. McCann,
Here.
Mr. Barry,
Here.
and Mr. Finer.
He's here. He's waving.
I see him. Thank you.
Okay, now I'm on mute. Yeah, thanks.
Good. Yes, yes. All right. Moving on, our next section would normally be community announcements. As everyone is well aware, essentially all of our public events for the borough are canceled through April 30th in compliance with the governor's stay-at-home order. However, if there are any members of council who have anything to add under community announcements, we can hear that now. All right, hearing none.
Hey, David.
Yes.
It might be good to let people know, even though they might already, that the trash pickup has changed temporarily to Wednesday and Friday.
You know what? Yes, thank you, Ryan. Good call. And that is an agenda item for later this evening, but it can't hurt to repeat it. That, as Mr. Barry mentioned, trash pickup will now take place on Wednesday morning and Friday morning. So that is a change. There will no longer be Saturday service temporarily, and there will no longer be bulk service as well, that large pickup. All right, we will then move on to the public comment portion of the meeting. And again, since we are doing this sort of in a new technological environment, I just ask that anyone who wishes to speak during public comment asked to be recognized either by using the hand raise feature if you're on the Zoom app, or if you are dialing in, you can request to be recognized by pressing *9. So this is the portion of the meeting for which members of the public can comment on items which are not on the agenda. If you wish to comment on an item that is on our agenda this evening, there will be an opportunity to do so at that point in our meeting. Again, we ask that you request to be recognized with the hand raise function and by pressing *9. When you are recognized, please state your full name and address before making your comment. So do we have any public comment this evening? Just going to wait a moment to make sure. All right, I am seeing none, so we will move on from there. Again, however, I know we're a little bit of tech difficulties, so if you are having trouble, again, just hit that hand raise or *9 and we can circle back to it. Next up will be item number 6 is consideration of the consent agenda dated for today, April 7th. Would any member of council request to remove an item from the consent agenda? All right, hearing none, is there a motion to adopt today's consent agenda?
So moved.
Here a second. All right, motion is made by Councilperson Siegel-Morris, seconded by Councilperson Thompson for adoption of the consent agenda dated today, April 7th, 2020. Is there any discussion from council? All right, hearing none, I will call the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none, the motion carries without objection. Great, we will move on. Chief Kelly, for your report.
Thank you, sir. A couple items tonight. The first item is I wanted to thank everyone in the borough, the elected staff, the business operators, the business employees, the residents. Far too many to list, but the overwhelming support the police department's received over the last 3 weeks in the form of donations, in the form of good wishes, people stopping by and wishing us the best. Just tonight, one of our businesses in town, one of our restaurants, donated another box of masks for the officers in the field. So it's very humbling, the generosity and support, and I wish I could thank them all individually, but there's just too many to list. We have been thanking people on social media though, so you can see a partial list there. The second item is our monthly service stats for the police department. In March of 2020, we handled 493 calls for service. 305 of those calls though were proactive checks of businesses and outreaches that we've done in the midst of this crisis. We've been increasing both our property residential checks of our businesses because some of them have been closed long-standing, and also checks of some of our larger housing complex, such as the Commons, Yardley Walk, and Yardley Point on a regular basis. We issued 3 parking tickets in March. We issued 52 moving citations. Those citations largely occurred before the 13th of March. Since then, we've been seeing about 1/10 the traffic we have seen in the borough due to the governor's order. We issued 2 non-traffic citations for minor criminal matters. We investigated 1 motor vehicle accident and made 3 arrests, 1 of which was for DUI. And again, that was consistent with occurring in the beginning of the month. The last item I have is the request for reclassification of 2 positions within the police department and to begin the promotional process. It's been said that an army runs on the back of their sergeants, and although a police department is not comparable in mission to an army, it is paramilitary in structure and very dependent on first line supervision. Especially now that we're dealing with increasing technologies, increasing public expectations, record level accountability that law enforcement has never seen before, increased liability, and newer officers who enter this profession who present with varying levels of experience, patience, and expectancy. According to both my research and my experience, approximately 85% of all police personnel are supervised at the first line supervision level. First line supervisors are the bridge between officers and management, and they directly report, often early, on organizational threats looming that sometimes go undetected through the conventional ways. First line supervisors deliver, instruct, and ensure accountability of our department policies. First line supervisors train, coach, and mentor new police officers. And being an agency of part-time officers, at least a good portion of which are part-time with regular turnover, this task is critical to our mission. First line supervisors manage critical incidents and they manage complex investigation. We've seen over the last 24 to 36 months some very involved complex investigations that have been managed by these men and closed by them. Hopefully I'll have some good news on an investigation that's been going on about a year shortly. Understanding patrol officers are the most readily identifiable and readily contacted of all our borough employees. It's the first line supervisor who ensures that they internalize our organizational culture and present our core values. These promotions would also mean our veteran officers who would have an observable career path with potential mobility, which would increase morale. And morale should also be increased by being on par with many of the other comparable boroughs and municipalities within Bucks County. So for that, I would respectfully ask the council consider the reclassification of 2 police officer positions to the rank of corporal, and that the current PFCs who be promoted into those ranks those positions be backfilled by officers. And the logistics on that would be, if approved tonight, this matter would be referred to both civil service and the civil service solicitor for potential next steps.
Council meeting.
Great, thank you, Chief. And I believe, I just want to make sure I have all the details clear. You do have that this requires an ordinance change. Is that how we would do this, or?
I would defer to the solicitor on that. I don't know if it requires, to change the table of organization, if it requires an ordinance or if it requires just concurrence.
Okay, but it would be through civil service and their solicitor.
Correct.
Okay, great.
Once we refer it to them, yes, sir.
Great. So Bucky, I guess do we need a formal motion here or just in consensus?
I think, given the format we're using, if someone would make a motion, it'd probably be easier for the recording purposes.
Okay, that makes sense. All right, so do we have a motion to refer this proposal to the Civil Service Commission for review and by their solicitor?
So moved.
Second.
All right, so that motion was made by Councilperson Siegel Morris, seconded by Councilperson Berry. Is there any discussion on this from council?
I had a question.
Oh, go ahead.
Is there a pay raise with these new positions?
There is. It would bring the 2 officers' salary from $74,187 to $75,164. So just under $1,000 per annum.
Is there also any additional trainings that they would have to attend, or is it something they've been doing kind of de facto anyway?
They were holding quasi-supervisory positions as police officers first class, so they've been attending some supervisory training, and that would just continue. They would still be on the same training and career path.
All right.
Quick question, David.
Yep, go ahead, Ryan.
So do you expect the Civil Service Commission to meet anytime soon or through Zoom, or what's your time frame?
The time frame's open on this, so I'll speak to the head of civil service as well as Mr. Trulove and see what they're most comfortable with doing. I think they could probably work via Zoom to at least discuss the first steps in it. And then by that time, I would imagine that the stay-at-home order would be lifted and we could proceed with the next steps.
Okay.
Right, generally that commission meets on an as-needed basis, so this would create that need. Any further discussion from council?
Just want to thank the chief and the Yardley PD for their professionalism and for the work that they're doing. It's really apparent at this time how fortunate we are to have people of this caliber in this little borough.
Thank you, Mr. Fire. And if I could, I mean, it's the guys that are working very hard. We haven't had a sick out during this entire event. The officers are showing courage, dedication, and loyalty, and I'll pass your thanks along.
Thank you.
One more question for me.
Yes.
So, do these positions, are these for, you may have said that, for full-timers or for the part-timers?
The corporal positions are for full-timers. They're civil service regulated. The positions they vacate, the 2 PFC positions that have to be backfilled, one would be for full-time and one would be for part-time.
And that's why the civil service, because of the full-time position.
Correct. Civil service will only deal with the promotion to corporals. The appointment to PFC does not go through civil service. That's not a civil service position. It's kind of complicated.
Sounds it.
Gotcha. All right. Any further discussion from council? All right. I do see one from the public requesting. So Ms. Perlmutter, I'm going to unmute you.
I think it was just answered. It was just answered. I was just curious when they get promoted about the positions that would be filled. Would it be officers that are already in Yardley Borough, or would it be the ones that would be hired after the ones are promoted, or would it be open to, would it be like an ad for others, for everyone?
So according to our borough civil service regulations, the promotions to corporal have a minimum amount of experience inside the borough. I believe that number is 3 years. So that would only be open to full-time police officers with 3 years experience, which there are 2 of. The promotions to PFC would also come from inside the borough, but there's no minimum time requirement for how long they must have served. But everyone is here already.
Okay, thank you. Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Thank you. Let's make one more call. Any other comments from the public? Again, the hand raise feature or *9 if you're on your phone. All right, seeing none, I will call the question on the motion. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Abstentions? All right, hearing none, that motion carries without objection.
Thank you, sir. And that completes my report.
Thank you, Chief. All right, we will next then move to our engineer's report.
Hello. Okay, so the first thing that we have is in regards to the change order for the road program and then the final payment. If you're all looking through the PDF, it starts on page 11 of the PDF for your reference. So the first one is for the change order, and that is changing the overall contract value down to $118,576.67. And for your reference, the original contract amount was $141,859.55. So even though we had all those mishaps, we still ended up being under what the original amount was for. So that's great news.
All right, so I assume we need a motion for that change order. So do I hear that motion at this time?
Moved.
Second.
All right, motion made by Councilperson Thompson, seconded by Councilperson Siebel Morris for the change order number 1 on the 2019 roads program. Is there any discussion from council? All right, hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor?
Can I ask one question?
Yeah, go ahead.
I just see speed bumps listed and then speed humps. Are they the same thing?
No, that was in regards to what they initially put in that was wrong, and then versus what is the correct thing that was done. And we were able to negotiate with them with regards to some of that cost differential. And then again, RVE has pledged to make a donation to the borough. And at this point, I'm not sure if it's been settled what fund that's going to actually go to. I think we were waiting to determine what's going on with the Mary Yardley Bridge project.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Further questions or discussion from council? Comments from the public? Right, hearing and seeing none, I'll call a question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed?
Aye.
Snuck in there. Abstentions? All right, hearing none, it carries without objection. All right,
Okay. And then the next one is for the final payment certificate for that project. And that is for an amount of $48,737.64.
all right, same thing. We will need a motion for the final payment certificate. Do I hear a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Anyone?
Second.
Thank you. Motion again by Councilperson Thompson, seconded by Councilperson Siegel Morris for payment certificate number 2. It's the final on the 2019 road program. Any questions or comments from council? Any from the public? All right, seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. All right, moving on to project updates then, unless you had anything else to.
I do have a few things.
Okay.
First one is just briefly about the EAC Watershed Management Grant. I had a conversation with ASA last week to sort of discuss, like, is there anything that we can continue moving forward with right now, even though we have the social distancing? We think that there might be some, but we definitely want to loop in the EAC. So I reached out to Michael, the president, and he is reaching out to the other members that he feels are prudent to be involved in that conversation. And we're going to have like sort of a kickoff meeting, hopefully before this week is out, probably next week at this point, and see what we can do with regards to keeping that moving forward. But we have already kind of received from most of the grant coordinators that timelines will not be held accountable because of all of this. Like, we will have extensions on everything, so not to get too worried about all of that. But we do definitely want to push that forward as soon as we can. So we're going to get moving on that. And then the last item that I need to discuss that is going to require a motion is in with regards to the DCNR land acquisition grant. So that is due on April 22nd, and our next meeting is on the 21st, which means we are good to be able to approve the resolution that will be needed at the meeting on the 21st, but to pull the grant together, we still need approval for that. So at the last meeting, RV got asked to kind of take a look into what the appraisal stuff would be, and getting quotes back on that has kind of lagged with what everyone has been doing, but I did actually get to speak to somebody today. I haven't received a formal quote yet, but I reached out to 2 contacts that Mayor Harding provided to Paula, Al Fakes and George Sengpil. I didn't get to speak with Al, left him a message, but George did call me back today and we got to talk about everything. And he said it seems like a very straightforward appraisal. He doesn't expect it to be more than $1,500, but doesn't actually expect it to be that much either. And then RVE's work to put together the grant application and all the necessary attachments would be about $2,500. So if it's at the far end for the appraisal, we're looking at a total of $4,000. And then additionally, one aspect of this is this would require a 50% match. And that is something that at this point in time, the borough doesn't necessarily have lying around, but depending on how the appraisal comes back with what the cost of the lot will be, maybe we could finagle it. But Paula had us look into other grant opportunities that we could utilize to meet the match. And this project definitely is a contender for the Growing Greener grant. For conserving open space, but that grant isn't due until May 31st, and this grant is due on April 22nd. So I'm trying to get some feedback from the grant coordinators to find out if there's, sorry, my cat is trying to climb. If we can work it so that should we hear back about the DCNR land acquisition grant and they tell us that we've gotten it, but we haven't heard back yet from the Growing Greener grant, that we could have an extension of when we need to accept the grant so that we would have the money. So I don't know what kind of language we would need to include in the application, But by no means do we want to get in a situation where like we accept it, we don't get the Growing Greener grant, and then the borough is on the line for this 50% match that they, might not have.
All right, understood. So this is essentially to go ahead with the appraisal, begin putting together the application. And what I heard a max, you thought 4,000?
Yes, for that effort. Yep.
Okay. So I guess if anybody would like to make a motion, it might be, appropriate to put a do not exceed on that, since we're sort of, not that it's an uncertain process, but it's still in something that's being worked out. So would anybody like to make a motion to that effect?
I'd like to ask some questions first.
Sure.
Sure. Go ahead.
So I just want to get the timeline straight. So when is the application need to be submitted by?
April 22nd.
April 22nd. When would the appraisal be done by?
So George said that he's still up and running, that they've been designated as an essential business because a lot of people are trying to like refinance their homes and stuff. So they're still being allowed to do them. So his proposal is supposed to give me an estimate of how soon he can do it. But the grant coordinators of this have already acknowledged that lots of people are lagging because of everything that's been going on with the COVID. So we are allowed to submit the final appraisal at a later date if we need to. But I did let George know about our timeline, and he didn't seem to think that that would be an issue. He said this is a pretty straightforward one because there's no buildings on the lot. It's just open land.
And when's our next council meeting? Just so.
The 21st.
21st. Oh, wow.
Close.
The day before, yeah.
But so do you expect council to see the appraisal before submitting the application?
I would hope so. That's certainly the goal for sure.
So we can sort of vote to get the appraisal today and then vote to submit the application on the 21st, and you would have enough time to submit.
Well, no, if we need to prepare all of the attachments to submit it, I need to do that over the next 2 weeks.
Right, so we would essentially be, right, we would essentially be with the motion tonight would be authorizing the preparation of the application in addition to, and having the appraisal done as part of that process.
Correct.
And then, I guess you mentioned we may have to do a resolution.
Yes.
And that's, a formality. A resolution often accompanies these grant applications.
Yep. And that we would do on the 21st and be able to submit it in on the 22nd.
That's what I meant. We can always say no on the 21st if we said, oh, this is way too much. We can't do it.
Oh, with like, you mean with regards to that 50% match and you don't?
Submittal, yeah.
Okay.
Okay. That's all I wanted to know.
Okay.
I'll make the motion.
I have one question, just to, as I recall, just to make sure that I understand this correctly. Obviously, the land is not developable land, but
no, it's completely in the floodplain.
But the current assessment of the value is based on it having that right to develop, and so this is going to be we expect it to be a way lower appraisal. And is the appraiser all on board? Is that already clear with the appraiser that's going to be appraised as a non-developable piece of land?
Yes, that's the way we discussed it. Yes.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
One more question before I make the motion. Does PICO need to give you any permissions to appraise at all?
I don't believe so, but we can certainly check into that, and George would provide that kind of information since he is aware that the borough doesn't own the property.
Okay. And I had a question too, Liz. How much is the appraisal?
So the range that I was given was 1,000 to 1,500, but George really didn't think it was going to be at that higher end. He said it's straightforward and it's
it seems a little high for appraisal.
Well, the part of it is that because he has to do it in the standard that's for the grant, it's just a little bit more than like your typical appraisal, but not significantly.
So what would the do not exceed be for the application preparation, including the appraisal?
4,000.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll make the motion. What is the grant called?
DCNR Land Acquisition Grant.
I'll make the motion to prepare the DCNR land acquisition grant for do not exceed $4,000 in preparation by the next council meeting.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion made by Councilperson Berry, seconded by Councilperson Finer to prepare the grant application in the do not exceed amount of $4,000 cost to the borough. I know we've already discussed, but any other final questions, comments, concerns from council?
Just one quick question. Is this, has Pico listed this property yet?
Yes, they listed it in early fall.
And they haven't gotten any bids, I assume?
Not that I know of, and they had always said that they would keep us in the loop if they did have any serious buyers. I know that Wes had been the one to kind of hear that it was up for sale. Oh, I haven't heard anything recently about it. Can certainly check in with them.
We might as well.
Mm-hmm.
All right, any additional questions, comments, concerns from council?
Yeah, I just had one. What was that listed for, Liz? What's that?
I was trying to find that earlier today, and I don't know if I ever saw that official number, but I want to say that it was around 135. I don't know if Paula remembers or Wes does, but it was.
I thought they offered it to us for in the 300 range.
Did they really? When
Yeah.
That's insane. There's
That
no
was, that was quite a while
See
ago.
how
I
much we gained by just waiting a little while?
That was quite a while ago. Very
That's the last
shortly
number I saw.
after- Right, it was very shortly after they removed the equipment, from what I recall, and I think at that time they weren't really aware that you couldn't develop on that piece of land. So I don't know if it was ever listed for that, or that was just sort of a soft offer, but obviously.
Maybe it included the equipment.
But all right, anyhow, I believe that was all questions, comments from council. Do we have any from the public? Again, it's raise hand or *9 if you're on your phone. I think a couple people joined us. All right, I'm not seeing any, so I'll call the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, hearing none, the motion carries without objection. Thank you.
Awesome. On to projects.
Yes.
Okay, so we kind of already really talked about the road program. At this point in time, we should have everything to close that out. So we will continue moving forward with that process. Mary Yardley Bridge, we had been waiting to get the O&M specs from the aluminum person. So we had not submitted it at the time of the previous council meeting, and then all craziness happened and they stopped accepting mailed applications. So I just got word today that they are up and running with electronic submittals. Some of the stuff, the formatting has changed of what they need us to submit for the attachments, but I should be able to make those changes first thing tomorrow and get that in. So that's kind of where we're at. Unfortunately, still have not been able to submit the PHMC review form for the Mary Yardley Bridge, but we're trying our best to get that in. But I did hear that with what's going on and their limitations of what kind of work they can actually do, they're apparently reviewing things very quickly. So hopefully we'll hear back sooner than we might have. And then Main and Afton, as you all know, construction projects are on hold, but we are trying to move forward with anything that we can. So in that regard, we're moving forward with the easement paperwork with the Fosters to allow for the placement of the pole in the control box. And then we are also in contact with PennDOT in regards to what needs to be done for the advanced pedestrian interval for all the crosswalks. So the response back from them said that, you know, we could definitely do that for the crosswalks that are parallel to Afton, but that it was more difficult for Main because of the left turn. So we're trying to figure out like what else we need to take a look at. Unfortunately, some of that legwork that we can't do until we get more accurate pedestrian counts for stuff. So this might be a long haul kind of thing, but at least we can figure out if there's stuff that we can do now and be prepared for that. And then I don't think this is listed on the projects, but our only other active project really is the Yardley Walk Dam project with the Yardley Walk in general. So we're trying to work with the HOA and their hired engineer Bustamante to put together a final punch list to be issued to Lennar. But at this point in time, we are still unclear when we'll be allowed to do an actual walkthrough. But we figure it might be prudent to at least really look at that, make sure that everyone's happy with it, and at least give them the chance to take a look at it, because there might be a way for some aspects of that punch list to be addressed that is still conforming to the social distancing, or if a landscaper or other contractor was able to receive a waiver from the state. So some companies have received waivers to continue work. So that might be an opportunity for them to get going on that. So we're doing what we can to keep pushing that forward. And I think that concludes my report.
All right, thank you. Does anyone have any final questions for our engineer? All right, so we will then move on to our borough manager's report.
Are you able to hear me, David?
We can.
Okay, as you saw in your packet, I sent a letter of intent from the post office, and that's to extend the lease for an additional 5 years. But they will need your approval to go forth with that. So that's my first thing.
Great. So do we need, I guess, to draft a new lease for them?
They already sent the stuff that I sent in your packet. So it sounds like they're going to start drafting up some stuff, and we'll send it to Bucky as well. Bucky, is that what you believe as well?
Yeah, what they've sent is a letter of intent, so it basically would outline the terms for the renewal of the post office lease. So I think if council were to essentially approve the letter of intent, then I'm not exactly sure who would draft the lease. I guess that would be something we'd have to follow up with them to see who would take the initial work on that. So. But really, the letter of intent really spells out the basic terms of what they're proposing for a renewal.
All right. So then I guess, perhaps a motion to accept the letter of intent. Would that be appropriate at this time?
Yes.
All right. Anyone like to make that motion?
I'll motion to accept the letter of intent from the post office to extend their lease.
Second.
All right. Motion was made by Mr. Berry and seconded by Mr. Ross. Do we have any questions, comments, concerns from council?
I just have a question just to get some background on it. So the post office, Paula, they lease this 5 years at a time, I guess, and they've been doing it,
Yeah.
I assume, for a very long time.
Yes. And I was pretty happy to get this because it seems like a lot of the smaller post offices are starting to close up. So this was a good thing.
Okay, thanks.
Great. Any other questions or comments from council? All right. Anything from the public? All right. Seeing none, I will call the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, hearing none, it carries without objection. Next item.
And the second item I have is from our trash haulers, Republic Services. They asked to change our Saturday day to Friday. We were hesitant at first because trying to get the word out to everybody was going to be difficult. And this is also due to the COVID-19. They agreed to hand deliver flyers to everybody on this past Saturday. and we posted on Facebook. We did email blasts. I haven't heard any problems at all. They originally wanted to go to 1 day a week, but I felt that was going to be too difficult for many of our residents, especially in the Commons. So they drafted an amendment to our contract. This is just temporary, just for the time being until everything with the COVID gets lifted and cleaned up. But we will have to have an acceptance of this amendment.
All right, would anyone like to make a motion to approve the amendment to our contract with Republic Services?
What does the amendment say? It says, does it say temporarily, and do we have to come back after the temporary is over?
This is just temporary, just while this virus pandemic is going on, and then it will go back to our normal, was it Wednesdays, Saturdays?
And the contract will say that.
Yes.
Well,
Yes.
who determines when it's back to normal? The governor?
I would think so, yes.
Just wondering.
In front of me.
I actually don't have it. I don't have it in
It
front
means
of me.
when we're not under a state of emergency. Is that?
David, if I may.
Yeah, let's, Bucky has it with him there, so go ahead.
Yeah, I actually didn't print it out. I don't have it right in front of me, but there's a set time frame. I think it was either 60 or 90 days in the amendment. So it was a definite period, presumably if.
For a period of 60
60
days, it does
Yeah.
say, Bucky.
Okay.
So presumably if the issue still exists 60 days from now, they'll be asking for an extension of the amendment. Otherwise, it'll just expire by its terms.
And I wanted to add in this agreement also, bulk waste collections are suspended because they just don't want the guys touching a ton of stuff. It's trying to be safe for the haulers, and the guys picking up all the trash.
Right, this was essentially prompted, they're trying to get their crews off the road, one fewer day a week. But also, it sounds like they were having issues at the landfill, where the landfill was not accepting on Saturdays anymore either. So everything they would collect would have to wait, essentially, which can lead to some safety concerns. So that's what prompted this. Apologies to everyone. This did, I think, land in your inboxes today. Sort of under the wire with it. But you should have all been sent copies. And again, it's a 60-day change, moving the Saturday pickup to Friday, and also temporarily suspending our bulk pickup. So with that, I don't think, we still need a motion for that.
I'll make the motion to temporarily change the contract terms.
For a second?
I'll second.
I'll second it.
All right, I'm going to give it to Ryan. I saw him first. The motion was made by Councilperson Thompson, seconded by Councilperson Berry, to accept the amendment to our contract with Republic Services, changing our pickup day from Saturday to Friday. Do you have any further discussion or questions from council?
My only concern is that I hope people in the Commons are aware there was a blast phone message sent out, but
Yeah.
we definitely didn't get a flyer if everyone else in Yardley got a flyer.
It was, I saw one on a post today, like on a utility post.
Okay.
I think they just kind of tacked them up around the Commons.
So it wasn't delivered door to door, it was posted.
Yeah.
Okay. So I guarantee
Right, in the Commons.
on Saturday.
I saw one though. I didn't see one where I live, but I knew already.
In the Commons, because you guys get the blast, they did not do one individually. It was in the Commons, in Yardley Walk, and in Yardley Station, where they had the HOAs send them out. We just thought it would be easier and quicker to do it that way.
Right, and elsewhere in the borough, I believe they physically tacked the notice to anybody whose cans were at the curb this past Saturday for pickup.
Yeah, I didn't get
And I will
one
redo the
personally,
blast.
but I think that all of my neighbors seem to know, so word has spread.
Good.
And we'll continue to push it on, we'll post it to the website, social media, through our communication channels.
Yeah, because the Commons puts out the trash all in a pile in front of. So I hope people know so they don't put out trash on Saturday. But there's nothing we can do. But try to inform them.
All right. Further questions, discussion from council. All right, anything from the public on that item? All right, seeing none, I'll call a question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none, motion carries without objection. All right. And then Paula, anything else for your report?
Besides my regular report that I already sent out to you, everything in the office is running smoothly. Patty and I are still working remotely. We do swing into the office on occasion. I'm here almost every morning, at least for a couple hours, grabbing some stuff to get things done. As some of you might have received, the community connections, I did send out cancellations and changes, and I did that via email. And I put it on Facebook as well because we did have a number of changes, unfortunately. But everything seems to be running smoothly. I haven't had any complaints. Very few people calling for any kind of building permits or anything like that since everything is on hold anyway. And that's about it.
Great. Thank you. So we'll move on. Mr. Klosser, anything for solicitor's report?
Nothing really in particular. I just wanted to inform council that we are taking a very close look at the federal legislation that just passed and keeping track of developments in the state. There's various proposals at the state level for law changes, things that deal with the emergency, things that are broader than that, to see what if any impact it would have on borough operations. So we're keeping an eye on that. And we'll keep you all informed if we see something that's relevant.
All right, thank you. Moving on, Mr. Harding, anything for mayor's report?
So thanks, David. Two quick things. So first of all, I want to call your attention to something that the police department did. They held an impromptu birthday celebration for a Yardley Borough resident named Danny, who that was exactly what he needed. And I think it's just another example of how this department, and not only department, but it's a reflection of the community. This community has really come together over this and done some fantastic things. So I wanted to formally extend my thanks to Chief Kelly for putting that together. I know there were other officers involved, but it was exactly what this department and what this community is about. So it was a really good thing. Secondly, our friends at St. Ignatius have started an emergency relief fund for those people who may be financially in need, who are struggling with medical bills, day-to-day bills, whatever it may be. It's a pretty simple process. It's a one-page application. If you know anyone who needs it or you yourself need it, anyone listening to the call, message me privately, and then I'll put them in touch with the people at St. Ignatius. It's a fantastic opportunity. If somebody just, is just struggling because they're out of work and needs a little bit of help, so please spread the word, and we put all the updates on the Facebook page. That's it.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. All right. Next up is our council member reports. Again, I'm imagining that we're not going to have a whole lot in the way of business here since most of our committees have not been meeting, but I will still go around anyhow and just give everybody the opportunity if they have any items they would like to report on. However, before we go into that, I do just want to, issue a little blanket statement now that, I think for the past couple of weeks, we haven't been so sure how long we were going to be in this pattern of social distancing, and now it seems it is at least through the end of this month with the possibility to extend a little longer. So I, we'll be in touch with each of you individually, but it's something I think we need to really consider now is that our committee meetings should continue as they otherwise normally would, and we can take care of that through Zoom. Anything can be set up through Paula to get those meetings scheduled. But I think that we should probably continue and get all of those meetings back on track, even if it's just in this format. All right, so that being said, I know this will be light, but we'll go around one by one. Mr. Barry, anything to report?
No report.
Thank you. Mr. Ross?
No report.
All right, Ms. Siegel Morris.
No report.
Myself, surprise, surprise, no report. Ms. Thompson.
I'll talk a little bit. So I just wanted to report a bit about financials. So we are tracking things closely. We had 16,000 and change budgeted in income from interest on our various savings accounts. We had already received nearly 3,000 before interest rates dropped, but we do expect to take significant losses in that category. Also, several income categories that we rely on, such as permits, likely traffic citations as well, will be down. So any ideas on cost controls would be welcome throughout your committees. Just be very careful where you're spending money. But the good news is we do have some reimbursable expenses that we are incurring during this emergency that the police department and Paula are tracking closely, and we're hopeful to get some funds coming back in. And also last meeting I reported that we were looking into possible loans or lines of credit to help cover some of our capital projects while the interest rates are low. So Paula has begun communications with Newtown Bank, which is who we had our last line of credit with, and we're pursuing line of credit first loan because if we don't end up using it, no harm, no foul there. So hopefully I'll have more to report on that at our next meeting. That's all I have.
All right, thank you. Next, Mr. McCann. John, anything?
He's on mute.
No report.
Oh, all right, thank you. And finally, Mr. Feiner.
Well, I do have a couple of things, amazingly. First, I just want to actually thank Paula for putting up the signs, kind of tangentially community outreach, but to put up the signs to remind people to social distance along the canal. I just actually saw a study recently in the JAMA, the Journal of American Medical Association, that says that this virus can spread up to 26 feet in the air. So not to scare people, but we really need to be aware of the areas in the community where are sort of the red hot, most dangerous areas, and do what we can. So I just want to thank Paula for that. And as well as the chief and the force for just looking for ways to help that. The thing that came to my attention was from former Councilman Rich Wayne, who brings this to us from the Harvest Committee. They are asking us to approve the 2021 date for Harvest Day to be September 18th. And the reason is because they have 2021 calendars they would like to give away, and they would like to include that event in those calendars. So technical reason. I guess that would require a motion, and I'd be happy to make that motion if that sounds good to the council.
You know, I'm going to defer to Paula here because I know that you usually do a review with dates and whatnot.
Right, which this is the first that we're hearing about that. I don't believe there's any conflicts, but I'm not 100% sure. So Ori, do you know when they need this answer by?
This just came to my attention, so I can find out. And yeah.
Okay. If he could wait until the next meeting.
I think a save the date form, it's just a one-pager with 3 lines would be appropriate here, and then we'd have something in front of us for Wes to look at and we could review. That would be my preference.
We have such a form, a save the date form? Okay,
yes.
Yeah. Paula, if you could send that to me, or if you want to reach out directly, however makes sense to you.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, great. Yeah,
thank you. And there was one other question that came to, and that is part of that, which was, and I haven't seen this yet because it just came to me, but I guess there are fences in Fitzgerald Field, and I was concerned about them being there for Harvest Day.
I could take this one. There was 6 trees planted. They were sycamore trees that was voted on, I think it was last year, and the Shade Tree Commission was concerned about people hanging on the trees, or when they bring cars into the field that they might get damaged. So they actually reached out to a local lumber yard, and a lumber yard donated these fencing, I guess you can call them. And they're only going to be there temporary until the trees become established, and then they'll be removed, but they're not going to be removed for Harvest Day. I don't think they're quite in the way for Harvest Day. They're to the side. So
Yeah,
I don't know if y'all want to take a walk down there and check them out, but I don't think they're in the way, in my opinion.
So I guess these two things could be lumped together, and because it's the same.
Okay.
It's Rich Wayne who brought both of them. I just happened to walk by and see him, and that's when you mentioned this, and then followed up by email. So if you want me to talk to him about it, or maybe the three of us can just talk about it, clear it up.
I can
It
even
sounds like
send
we
pictures
can
so
take
you.
this offline.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know. Again, I haven't seen them, but I can usually go down and take a look.
I've seen them. They're all the way over by the trees. Like they're all the way up. They're not in the middle of the field. Like they're nowhere.
So you don't.
taking
So
them
no
out.
one sees this as an issue. I don't know. I'm not sure. I'll have to find
I
out why
think
he thought it was an issue.
to be fair, I think it reduces the usable square footage to some degree, especially where they usually have the stage. So perhaps we could provide them with some sort of rough drawn map of the area so they can plan where they can place tents and where they can't. That might solve the issue. I can draw that up. I'd be happy to do that.
Okay, so it sounds like just some communication about this is all we need to do.
Great. Yeah, we can
Thank you.
follow up with that one afterwards. All right, anything further? You good? All right. So I'll just ask real quick. I know we just did reports, but if anyone else has any sort of miscellaneous discussion items, perhaps some future business, now would be the time. All right, and hearing none there, I'll just do one more quick call because I know we've had a couple people joining throughout the meeting. Again, if anybody wants to make any final comments, if you're on the app, there's the raise hand button. If you're dialed in by phone, you'll press *9. And I don't see any popping up. So that would conclude our normal business for this evening. Would anyone like to make a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion.
Wait, I think Don Carlson wants to speak. I saw a thumbs up.
I'll withdraw my motion.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, Don Carlson, 14 Creekview. Just a quick procedural comment. You may notice I see only 21 people in here, and I tried to join this meeting, and going through the Yardley Borough page, it was referencing the 17th meeting. I couldn't get in. Luckily, I got a hold of Paul, and she gave me the link. So for the future, if you could make it easier and more apparent for us residents to know how to join. It's not a Zoom thing. I mean, I know how to run Zoom, but it's very difficult to find the meeting ID. So it may be helpful to find a better way to broadcast that in the future.
Gotcha. Yes, thank you. Yeah, we'll make sure the webpage certainly has the correct info on it. I do just want to mention, however, something we did this meeting was instead of directly posting the Zoom ID, was asking folks to register ahead of time. And this was sort of a balancing act. We want meetings to be accessible, and that's certainly the law that they need to be accessible. But we're also mindful that, a phenomenon you probably read about it known as Zoom bombing, where people essentially join your meeting that aren't supposed to be there and make quite a disturbance. And that's risen to the level where there's actually FBI guidance that asks us not to post meeting IDs publicly. So we will, if the future, be using this registration idea, where instead of just being able to copy and paste the meeting ID, you'll need to register for it ahead of time. But again, we will make sure that is posted in all the appropriate places.
Okay, my second comment is, I don't know who's the host of this meeting, but as the host of the meeting, you need to turn on the raise the hand feature, because it is not turned on, as far as I can tell.
Okay, I'll double check on the back end. It was last time, and we didn't change anything, but we'll double check.
Because the only reason you caught me asking a question is because I hit the reactions, a thumbs up thing, and someone saw it and undid it. But the actual feature for raising a hand is a host controlled thing. So you want to maybe check that out next time.
All right, I'll take a look. I'm not too sure there because I actually did have somebody use it earlier in the meeting.
Okay.
But again, I'll take a look and try to figure out what's happening.
right.
Thank you. In fact, I see Wes raising your hand. Are you raising it to speak or just to show?
Just to see if it's working, that's all, David.
Yes, it does. Again, I'll just take a look on the back end to see if there's some sort of glitch going on there.
I actually don't see it either, oddly enough.
I don't have it, yeah. It
Yeah,
must be
some
people who
people-
call in are able to do it with star.
Yeah.
I have it on my app.
I have it, but you got to go to that list of participants and drop it down. Then the raise hand is on the bottom.
That's correct.
Oh, you're right.
Oh, yeah.
Please stay on the call if you'd like to learn about Zoom.
All right, we'll agree to take the technical issues offline. All right, so if there's nothing further, again, we'll take that motion to adjourn now.
I'll motion.
Second?
All right, motion to adjourn by Mr. Barry, seconded by Mr. Ross. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, thank you, everybody. Have a good night.
Good night. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.